That's the motto. Drop a few pills and pop a few champagne bottles. Throwing that money like you just won the lotto. Weeping up all damn summer, making that bread and butter. Tell me did I just stutter? That's the motto. Drop a few pills and pop a few champagne bottles. Throwing that money like you just won the lotto. Weeping up all damn summer, making that bread and butter. Tell me did I just stutter? That's the motto.
I tell you what, Daz gets class with these little intros, doesn't he? You can't help just bop away in the background when it's coming on anyway, can you?
Brilliant, mate.
Pete, Chris, how are you for this fantastic first shot of the night?
All
good,
good.
mate. All good. Yeah.
Looking forward to chatting about different players.
Here we go. This is what we do. We react as quick as we can, and of course, the show we're recording now is hopefully will go out tomorrow, which will be Thursday, I believe. So obviously, you should be able to get to pretty much within the last 24 hours. But all the talk today was the imminent arrival of a certain Gabri Veiga from Celta Vigo. Obviously, Celta Vigo haven't had a fantastic start. They didn't have a fantastic season this year, sorry. But he's been one of the young stars of La Liga. So just before we get into a bit of the stats and stuff like that, Pete, what do you think of Gabriel Veiga to start with? And what do you know about him?
What do I think about the potential move? I'll start with, I'd be excited about the potential move. He fits the criteria perfectly in terms of a young, up-and-coming player that we can mould and make better. Comes with really, really good credentials, with the style of playing. Look, we'll get into that, I'm sure. But I'm really excited about this move. If in fact it does happen. 30 million euro release clause. As you've said, Celta Vigo haven't had a great season, but he has clearly shone in a poor team. So there's lots there that we've got to work with for me in terms of a player. Very, very good on the ball. We talked about this, Chris, you'll know from previous shorts. Eddie Howe is looking for a player that is comfortable with the ball at his feet, especially in midfield, because he is looking to build a team that is good and holds possession for long periods of time. And he looks like a guy that's more than comfortable with the ball. But we'll get into all the other stuff in that. But that's just my initial thoughts, Richie.
Yeah, Chris, what was your initial thoughts when you saw the news this afternoon that it's potentially on the cards? Do you know much about him, or was it come out of the blue for you, or what did you make of it?
I'm laughing, Rich, because obviously before this show, I was saying to you boys, obviously Vega's come with a fantastic reputation, but I've got to admit, I don't really know that much about him. All I know is obviously, born in Spain, 21. I've did a little bit of a check before, and I see 6 foot, 47 appearances for Celta Vigo, and he scored 9 goals. So yeah, sorry, Rich, yeah, great. So he certainly looks like he ticks a lot of boxes. I think a few people have been reporting recently, haven't they, that like Eddie Howe's looking for like a tallish team, like he's wanting, that big, strong, athletic, powerful box-to-box kind of player, because we are all about our intensity, aren't we? Intensity is our identity, I think Eddie Howe said. So he certainly ticks a lot of boxes, and an exciting young prospect. I mean, I know it was Fab Romano, wasn't it, who broke things earlier today, saying that there's a possibility, or was it Marker? Or I might be getting Marker, yeah. So it's certainly someone to get excited about. He's at a great age. I know we
always say, yeah, great age.
Great age. We always like to mention that. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. But boys, I've said this a few times now. Even though I don't know much about Veiga, the fact that Eddie Howe and the team are looking at him and want him, that excites me alone, because I know how much research goes in to looking at these players, and I know that they don't just see someone have a good tournament or a couple of good games and go, do you know what, we'll have him. There's a lot of research going in, so I'm personally excited about it. And if he comes through the door, then I'm delighted.
Yeah, obviously, the first thing I was going to say is, the middle stat on this one, it's a fantastic one first. That's what we're all looking for. Now, I was going to say 1, 2, 3, all of us go great age, but Chris beat us to it as per usual.
Oh, sorry, Ditch.
It's all right, mate. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Apology accepted. Don't worry about it. But obviously, going on, I think one of the other things is that I'll briefly talk about this with Pete before the show started, was he's stats in a really underwhelming team, as we touched on. They finished pretty fourth bottom, one place out of the relegation zone. So he scored 9 goals. Bear in mind, they only scored 41 as a team full stop. So he's nearly got a quarter of the goals for the whole team full stop. 3 assists. People might not go 3 assists isn't great, obviously, when they've scored 41. But if you look at, he's created 40 chances for an underperforming side. If that, to me, and as I mentioned to Pete earlier, that just goes to show he hasn't got a very good supporting cast around him. And can you imagine if you've got a lot better quality, if you've got like a Wilson and Isak and Bruno and whoever else gets brought in over the summer in as well, what's that going to go up to? So what's your thoughts on those obviously his personal stats there, Pete, for last season?
Really interesting, and I think quite telling, to be fair. For me, those 40 chances created, that's what we want in this team. We want to be able to create more chances. We are looking, there is no doubt, we're talking about Gabri Veiga from Celta Vigo at this point in time. But whoever Newcastle United sign in that midfield, they have to be creative. They have to create opportunities for this team, because although we've scored a lot of goals in this season just finished, we want to be able to score more goals. We want to be able to create more chances. We want to be able to take pressure off Bruno Guimaraes. We want to be able to take pressure off one or two of the Kieran Trippier, for example, who's been outstanding this season, right back, creating crazy amount of chances for us. We want to be able to go, you know what? We've got 3-4 options here of players that can create chances, because you can guarantee next season teams are going to find a way to try and stop Bruno, to try and stop Kieran Trippier. But if you get a Gabri Veiga in there, or one or two others that add to that, and he can clearly do it from the stats there, in a team that finished 17th in La Liga, creating 40 chances for a team. Richie, you're absolutely right. The supporting cast have let him down. But we've got Alexander Isak, we've got Callum Wilson, that 9 times out of 10 will put the ball in the net. That will bring his stats right up there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of for me, one of the comparisons that, looking back to who's been in the Premier League now, who's also played in the league at a young age, who has now developed being in the Premier League, is a comparison, Chris. And obviously, you can put your thoughts. I like him to like a young Odegaard sort of thing. He's that creative midfielder, good in close spaces, got a fantastic shot on him as well, obviously. And as we, Peter's mentioned, he's great at that creating in and around the box area as well. Obviously, we've got a lot of assists from Trippier this year, but that's been mainly from balls in or from set pieces. So it's another string to this bow that Newcastle are trying to create with under, obviously with that idea they're trying to create. But Chris, briefly, what did you make of those stats? Do you think it's what Newcastle are looking for?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. I mean, we all shared the same concern, didn't we? During the January transfer window, when we were all saying, "Oh, we're desperate for a central midfielder. We really need one." What if it happens to Bruno? What happens if something happens to Joe Linton, Willock, Longstaff? And then we were like, "Oh, it's all right. We've got Shelby coming back." And then Shelby went, and then it was like, "Hang on a minute. We now need 2 central midfielders." We know there's certain players coming back, like the likes of Hendrick, Hayden, Matty Longstaff, and unfortunately, I don't think they've got a future at the club. So really, central midfield is a key area for us, and we've seen, haven't we, lads, over the last few weeks, a lot of people have kind of changed their mind as to where the key positions are that we need. I think initially we were all saying in January, we need a right winger, and now we're saying, oh, maybe a right centre back, or we need a central midfielder as well and a left back. So, for me, central midfield arguably is the key area, because we need that holding midfielder, that number 6 that we've all been crying out for. And as Pete said, we need that creativity, because we can't always rely on Bruno Guimaraes, because Joe Linton, fantastic. He's been brilliant this season. Joe Willock, he's become a real player for Eddie Howe, and as has Sean Longstaff. But those 3, Joe Linton, Willock, and Longstaff, they don't create all that much. But imagine, if you're bringing on a youngster who's got loads of technical ability, and he can just come in and try and create more chances for the strike force and the wingers. To release a little bit of play from the full backs. If we get a new left back, we've got Trippier on the right, a new left back on, bombing up the left hand side. It's exactly what we need. So as I said before, really, really exciting, mate. And he comes with a really good reputation. And what did we say the release fee was? About 30 million euros.
Yeah.
Got to be interested in that. What's that equate to? Maybe 24, 25 million pounds.
25, 26, I think it's about that. It's
if you
bargain.
What you get in the Premier League for that?
Yeah.
Chris Wood.
Oh, now. Luckily, we got 90% of that money back.
Yeah. I think what we'll do, because obviously with a short, it's a quick one on this one, so I'll do it probably a minute on these each, and we'll round up. But obviously, this is his basic attributes. Now, to people who obviously might not understand the visuals and stuff here, so I thought the best way to just do it was to compare it with Newcastle's current midfield five. So obviously, natural comparisons, Bruno. Which obviously you can see how much Bruno is the breadth of the midfield and makes everything tick. You then compare him to Joe Linton, slightly different as well on the defensive side, Joe, obviously, which we've seen in recent seasons. Then you've got Longstaff, completely different player, more defensive, but you can see the creativity that comes out there with Longstaff. Willock, very, very similar stats, which I thought obviously this is what we'll briefly round up on. But he can actually play out wide as well on the right as well, and if he was to go down that way as well, his stats are very similar, if anything, slightly better than what Miggy's got. Yeah. But the two I want to touch on, and Pete, I'll come to you for the first one brief, obviously, because I'm aware that we're running below us. Obviously, we saw the like for like for Bruno. There's a good comparison of the difference, but obviously that creative aspect that we're looking at.
Yeah, and look, I mentioned to you boys before we came on, and I said if we were to sign Gabri Veiga, for me, the way he plays would be very similar to a Bruno alternative. I'm not saying he's on Bruno's level yet. He's 21 years old, of course not. But he plays a very similar way in that he gets the ball or he receives the ball in very tight spaces. Bruno's one of the only players that does that. Joe Willock to a point, which is why their stats are quite close. But Bruno receives those balls in those tight spaces. Equally, he comes from deep to receive the ball too. The one thing we haven't talked, or two things we haven't talked about from his perspective, and this is why I think he links with Joe Willock really well, is his progressive runs with the ball. He can carry the ball long distances, and Joe Willock is very much similar to that. And I think that might be why he's similar. Last thing from me, the one thing that we're missing in this midfield is the ability to shoot from distance. He can do that. And he's got a good strike of the ball. He keeps the ball low gravity, low and hard. He drives the ball really, really well. And some of the goals that he scored this season have been from distance. That's definitely something, in my opinion, that we lack. We should have it from Longstaff. He doesn't do it enough. No. But he's shown that he can do that before. Sure, Longstaff does. But we need an alternative, a shot from distance outside the box. We don't see enough of that. And that's another kind of string to our bow that we'd add if we signed him. Yeah.
I think, we'd all agree would be fantastic over the moon if we got a player like him in. And, if we can get to see him in a black and white shirt, come the summer for the start of the season and see him in Champions League football, I think all of us perfectly agreed would be happy with that.
1,000,000%.
For sure.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. Well, look, that's a quick little short into Gabri Veiga. We will no doubt talk about it over upcoming shows. If you are interested, leave any comments in the actual thread. We'll get back to them. We can actually return to it in a show later on. And remember, if you want, remember, put a super chat in. And if you want to talk about Gabri Veiga, that'll go straight to the top of the talking point. But look, from us, Gabri Veiga, how do you like that?
Oh,